My name's Mike Siggety, and behind the camera is my good friend Mike Hamill, and this is our Honda XR CRF 50 off-road race bike. If you're watching this video, you probably started off with the KTM 50 and got really fed up like we did with all the breakdowns and mechanical issues, and was looking for a better way. And everyone knows that you can't have a Honda 50 keep up with a KTM 50, but with some modifications you can definitely shorten the gap a lot. And in fact, my son Ryder has won several championships on this bike, beating all the other air-cooled KTMs and even many of the liquid-cooled KTM 50s and even Cobra 50s. Just because if the course was really technical, this was a more manageable bike, and this bike always finishes. So we're going to let you in on our tips on what we did to make this bike a much better off-road bike. But before I get into that, I just want to say in no way will this ever beat a KTM 50 on the motocross track where you have a 10-minute race. But when you're racing off-road and you're racing in the woods and you have hour-long races, this bike always finishes and needs very little maintenance and is very manageable. So let's get to it. There's quite a few things here. Sorry if I'm jumping around, but we'll talk about, we'll get to the front of the bike first. So as you can see, the biggest change in this bike is we have the KTM front forks on this bike. And it's a pretty big project to make those forks fit on this bike, but you go from having horrible suspension to great suspension. Now, it would have been a lot easier just to buy a bolt-on Vbr type front end suspension kit, but there's big problems with that. And one of the main problems is that all those bolt-on forks are sprung for adults, and we don't need any of that because, you know, we're talking a 60-pound kid. They usually come with large, a lot of times they come with larger wheels and things like that. That's an issue too. And they're super expensive. You can buy these forks for $100, $200. Not to say you can do the conversion for that, but we know these forks worked awesome. They did need a lot of modifications, and of all the things done to this bike, that was by far the hardest thing we did. And lucky for us, we have a friend named Floyd Burt, who has a son Jaden, who's also a champion on this similar bike, or at least the front end similar, and he helped us figure it out. But let's talk about that first. So what you do is you get a set of forks from, if you can, the senior model, not the junior model, because the junior didn't have enough travel for us. And I prefer the disc brake model. You don't need the disc brake model. You can go with a drum model. But we found with the disc brake model, besides being a much better brake, it was always tough to find the right actuation point on the drum model where the drum would drag or be too far out, where the disc it was very easy to adjust. However, these KTM disc brakes are the absolute worst ever designed. The formula brakes, they constantly need some sort of maintenance. Something is seizing up on them. You can't bleed them without special tools, and they're not cheap to find on eBay or wherever you're looking, so you'll have to find a system. And to make it work, there's different size lines for the junior and the senior, and you'll need the senior line if you want to get the full travel. But you can't just mount the senior forks on here because it has too much travel and the bike will be a chopper. So you do have to shorten the springs a little bit. Is that what we did, Mike? We shortened the springs a little bit?
And spacers.
And spacers, right. And once you do all that and you get the ride height proper, you still have to do work to the forks to make them right. I know some people have done it with junior forks, but I don't think that was going to work for us. So what we did is we actually took another spring from a PW80 and put that inside with the KTM spring, because the KTM springs aren't made to hold up a bike of this weight. You know, these bikes I think comes like 115 pounds and the KTMs are like 80 pounds. And so it was sagging a lot. I think other people have done it without having to go that route with all the different springs, but it didn't seem to work for us. Here, now how do you get those forks to fit on this bike? Because there is no triple clamps that would fit. This is a KX65 triple clamp. I believe they're pretty much all the same, but I think we were using a 3 or a 4. But I'm pretty much sure they're all the same. Then the steering stem that comes on the KTM, the KX clamp is too long, so you actually have to have it because it will hit the bar. So we actually had to cut it. It's not too long though if you put the bar risers on there, but when we first did it, we didn't have bar risers, so you might be able to get that to work fine. The forks that are on the KTM are slightly smaller than the KX65. I mean, just like a millimeter too small. So we put a piece of tin flashing or roofing flashing in there to hold it in, and that seems to be working real good. Actually, it's definitely working real good. There is a little bit other modification that goes in there too. I think we had the spacer made here. Do you remember that, Mike? I don't think that spacer is stock. So I'll have to double check on that. You can email me if you need more information on that. You can just bring the bike and the clamps to any machine shop and let them figure it out. And do it there. You can look me up on Facebook and I can try to help you find it out there. But it was a few years ago that we did this and my memory's not so great. But you definitely, as you can see, make it fit and it works awesome. Then we bought this bar riser kit. There's a bunch of bar riser kits, but Bike Master makes one that has, as you can see, different adjustments on it. So as your son or daughter grows, you can raise the bars up. Now once you start raising the bars, and you got to raise the seat up, which we did here too. So we bought a aftermarket tall seat, and then the seat covers that come on the bike or on even some of the aftermarket kits, they're junk. You need a seat cover that has a lot of grip to it so the kids really stay in place. My son notices that right away. We've been real happy with these moto seats. We've never torn one yet. They hold their grip for a while. They go on good. They look nice, and that helped a lot to raise the bike up for him. You know, if you don't do that, then you don't start raising stuff up, then their knees hit, or their distance from the seat to the foot peg is too short, and then they start riding with their legs backwards like this, and they can't shift and feel the pedal. So you got to keep the distance from the foot peg to the seat proper, so they can get all that right. Speak of shifting, we put on a folding tip shift lever because the kids are always smacking into stuff. Plus one, right, Mike? That's right. It's a +1 shifter. Thank you for letting us know that. We also use aftermarket foot pegs. They're really cheap on eBay, 15 bucks.
Steel.
You can use steel or aluminum, right? Whatever you prefer. We like the steel ones. We put an aftermarket kickstand on there. Not a really huge help. Still doesn't work real well when you start jacking the bike up like we did, but it is something on there. We also, in the air box, there is or air cage, what do you want to call it? There is a screen, like a splash screen that's like half of it is like solid and the other half is open for the air to go through. We actually have 2 splash screens. We have one for dry days where we cut out that splash screen so the air flows better, and another one for wet days where we keep that half splash screen in there. That's a stock. We've never run the pod filters. I know 2 people that have done it and have had good luck. I know many more people that have done it and had bad luck. I get a little nervous about that in bad weather and wet weather days. I've seen that have problems. It would be something maybe to look into, but we didn't do that. We kept the engine pretty much stock except for a high compression piston, which we used the Wiseco, and that was nice. And we also run VP fuel, and we run 4.4 50/50. Now, a lot of people don't want to spend the money for VP fuel, but if you think about how much fuel these bikes use and how long a 5-gallon pail will last you, it'll last you forever, especially if you mix it 50/50. The bike runs cooler, the bike runs stronger, the bike starts up easier, so it's been really good for us. And it runs more powerful too. Another thing that we hated on the stock bike was, you had to get rid of the kill switch, first of all, because when you change the bars, you got to use a whole different throttle setup. But the Honda kill switches, they're always prone to problems. They actually break off. So we use a RM or KX style button kill switch here. So, and never use the on-off switches. Those are terrible. The kids accidentally hit those, or they forget about them. They knock them. They shut it off. They can't start the bike. You don't want to ever have to deal with that with the kids. So you always want a button like that. We also have, when you get rid of the stock bars, you got to put on your own throttle. So we use a Vbr style with an extra long cable, so that fits nice. We did that too. We changed the gearing also. It comes with a 15 in the front, I believe. We dropped it to a 14. You just don't need to go. I mean, the kids really will be tapped out in 3rd gear, so that wakes the bike up a little bit. And also we put a rim lock or a bead lock on the rear wheel because the tires do spin on these bikes, and then the valve of course spins, so that prevents that from happening. And you probably already know this, but just to check if your valve core spins, what we do here is, I don't know if you can see, but we always leave the nut unscrewed to the end of the cap so you can see if it's spinning. But it doesn't spin anymore now that we got the rim lock on there. And one good thing about the Honda tires or Honda wheels is that you can mount any tire on there fairly easy. The KTM wheels, I guess they got a bigger lip on them, but tires do not like to go on the KTM wheels. We've had more problems with the Dunlops than any other tire, getting those on the front, so we don't use that. Obviously you can do some nice graphics, make your son happy or daughter happy with that. We've been using motor oil. We go 8 hours on oil changes. That's a 10W40. We don't use synthetic. Are we using the semi-synthetic? I think the semi-synthetic, yeah. And oil comes out fine. The bike runs fine because of that. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, the handlebars are KLX 110 cut. We cut them 27 inches wide. Oh, how can I forget this? We got a steering dampener in the front. Now, a lot of people run steering dampeners on their adult bikes, but they think it's kind of strange to run them on the little bikes. I actually think the little bikes need them way more than the adult bikes. I mean, think about it. These little tires getting bounced around, hitting roots. The kids are not used to that. A lot of them ride with their elbows down. So this Vbr steering dampeners is your only choice. There's no other dampers that would fit on this bike, but they work great for kids. They're perfect. And gives the kids a lot more confidence. When I see when my son tries someone else's bike, he feels instantly uncomfortable without the steering dampener. And like I said, he's won several championships on this bike against several other racers who are also top people, beating a lot of the KTMs and the Cobras, because his bike is set up so good for him. So that's been working really, really well for us too. We also changed the spark plug cap, which I'll show you here. I believe this year comes with a plastic spark plug cap, and that is very prone to cracking and hitting stuff. I mean, he is not only able to race this bike, but we're able to go exploring in the woods and go bushwhacking and hill climbing and anything we want, and this bike is just tank durable. We can go anywhere. We had that KTM 50 or 50s. We have several of them, air-cooled, liquid-cooled, newer ones, older ones. No matter what we did, I had to travel with coolant, and the bike was still always overheating. This bike goes forever. You could take your son out on all-day rides, like one direction and come back. We do. We go through several towns. You take a KTM on an all-day ride, you're taking a chance. So yeah, we changed the spark plug cap to a rubber spark plug cap, so that's a lot less prone to breaking. I changed the Kickstarter to a slightly longer Kickstarter that I found on eBay. Wasn't expensive at all. I just felt it was making it a little easier for him to kick. I was a little nervous about it breaking, but this is aftermarket, and a lot of this stuff is probably Chinese, but it's been on here for a couple years and never broke. It's been working pretty good. Still has a nice spring to it, so it goes back. What else? Oh, we got the Fmf pipe on here. Now, Fmf and the skid plate. The Fmf pipe, they actually make two pipes. They make one for a big bore kit and one for a standard bore kit. And when we hopped on this bike, a friend of mine who had a son, Jaden Floyd Burt, he recommended the big bore size, so I got the big bore size. I haven't tried the small size. I imagine you get more top end with the big bore kit, big bore pipe versus the small pipe. But for the kind of racing my son was doing, he actually needed the top end a lot, so that worked out nice. I did notice that the stock pipe actually gave the bike more bottom end than these pipes. Like it really had a little bit of a snap to it that kind of gets lost with this pipe. I'm assuming it's the pipe, but it signs off really early, the stock pipe, and it's a lot heavier. So I actually thought that if it was going to be a really tight, gnarly, muddy race, I would switch back to the stock pipe, but I never did. But it would definitely be something I would consider. And then, we wrapped the pipe with a heat tape. And there's a million companies out there making heat tapes, and they all sort of like the Chinese batteries. They always claim each guy wants to outdo the next with what their temp resistance is. But we use stuff from Heat Shield products. They're only American made, only about tapes, and this has lasted a long time for us. I think we also spray it with some sort of clear coat to make it last a little longer. And then I put this is actually a 4-stroke pipe guard that I put on here because this area is the most vulnerable to getting ripped off by branches and stuff. So just on the bottom part here to keep that stuff from ripping off. And then we have the Vbr Skid Plate, which is nice. There's a bunch of skid plates on the market. Some of them didn't clear the pipe so well. This one's been pretty durable for us. I mean, most Vbr products, as everyone knows, is pretty durable. So that's worked out well for us. We've experimented with a couple brake pads. Did we have to clean the hub on this one? I forget.
Periodically, yes.
You gotta take, you always want to make sure that the brakes work good before your son goes or daughter goes to the starting line or any race. So every now and then, when they start to feel like they're getting a little spongy, you gotta take the wheel apart, and we have like a flapper wheel that goes on a Dremel tool, like a sanding flapper wheel, and we just clean it out real nice, and then the brakes seem to come back after that. We got the Fmf cap on the rear here. I believe that. Again, I found that it added a lot more top end to the bike, took away a little bottom end. That's been good. You know, these Michelin tires have held up pretty good for us. Didn't have any problem with that. So that's our championship bike here. Let me see if I forgot anything.
Shock.
How could I forget about that? Yeah. Big one. There's a Fox shock on here. That's definitely a love-hate relationship. The stock shock doesn't do anything. It's made for an adult. The kid will just bounce and bounce and bounce. It's crap. There's not many options for this bike that are good. So we put a Fox shock on there. But believe it or not, it doesn't fit that good. My friends have done it. You got to bang the hell out of the frame, put dents in it. Sometimes you got to cut it, and like the supports. So we actually, after we got done making it fit, I was so disappointed with how much we had to cut away that we actually had another support welded in here. As you can see, this is not stock here. My friend Ben Smith put that in there. But then I talked to someone else who said he put the shock in upside down from the way the manufacturer recommends to do it, and it fit better that way. You just can't get to the compression adjust. I forget if it's a compression or rebound, but you can't get to the adjustment that way. So that was a little disappointing to hear that. I could have done that and not all that cutting and welding and banging, because it doesn't really quite clear the frame like it should. And then if your valve cap is not screwed on all the way really tight, it hits the frame and breaks off the shock body. It's kind of like I said, a love-hate thing. It's definitely a lot better than stock, but it's not like if you put a Fox shock on your bicycle and all of a sudden the bicycle works a lot better. I mean, it still is, a linkage-less design. So, but it's very adjustable, and it is the best option out there. I keep telling myself I'm going to sell them when I'm done and hopefully recoup my money. And I think they're probably pretty popular, so when you're done, you probably could get a decent amount of money for them, though they're all scratched to hell from all the dirt and mud in there and going back and forth, so it might not look so pretty. We also re-siliconed the ignition cover here because that does take on a little water. Oh, I almost forgot we run an O-ring chain. I mean, as you can see, it still spins pretty good with an O-ring chain. And the last thing you want is the chain to derail. And we put the Masterlink clip facing the inside. The clip is over here. So, and then we have the Vbr chain guide too. We put the clip on the inside here, so as he hits this or stuff, it doesn't rub on here. But you want to, obviously every time you wash the bike, you always want to inspect that. Make sure that's in good shape. We run a DT1 air filter. It's it's a high quality air filter. The bike's never taken in any dirt, runs great. Every now and then, you want to just make sure there's nothing here in your air box. You can take out that plug there. Let's see. I think that's pretty much everything. Now we got the bark busters. You gotta obviously bend the hell out of them. This kill switch, Kickstarter, piston, exhaust, O-ring, tires. The Moto seat cover, Fox shock, BP fuel, Motul 5100, 10W40. Do not use synthetic every 8 hours. The bead lock, the airbox shield, and we didn't have a timer on this thing from day one, but right now the timer says, I can't read it, I'm blind. You remember what it says?
I think it's upwards of 180.
180 hours. And we only put that on after he started racing it. And this is 2003. My son's only been racing it a few years. And the only thing we really replaced was the spark plug clap and the piston.
Yeah, and the piston was absolutely perfect.
It was fine, right? I do recommend doing a compression test when the bikes are fairly new so you can keep an eye on that. Well, actually, can you do a compression test on the 4-stroke?
This one is over 200.
Over 200 you can, yeah. He did once hit the shift shaft and bent it really bad. And Mike was able to custom bend the Kickstarter to compensate for that. And it hasn't leaked since. So, we thought we were going to have to take it apart. But this bike's been great for him. The top guys on the KTMs, they're definitely, faster and on the Cobras. But I think he finished like 3rd overall in the season out of 50 kids on 2 strokes, 4 strokes, or 4th overall, or something like that, actually. Anyway, again, it depends what series you're talking about. And it won't keep up with the fastest bikes, but it will always finish, and it'll definitely be the fastest air-cooled bike and the best air-cooled bike out there. So if you have any questions, you can contact me on Facebook, Mike at Mike Siggety. You can try using this YouTube channel, but for some reason I don't get the emails too much on that. And thank you for watching. Hiccup Rider, tell us what you like about your Honda 50.
The steering dampener makes it so when I hit a rock, it doesn't jolt like that. It stays straight. And the bendable shift lever, when I hit a rock, it doesn't break off, it just bends.
Uh-huh.
And the disc brakes work a lot better.
Yep.
And the, I don't know.
What about the seat?
The seat is a lot taller, and it makes it so I can fit between the foot pegs and the seat.
Right. Remember how your feet used to always be bent like this? Show us how your feet used to be on the foot peg.
They used to
On the
be-
foot peg. Yeah, like they used to always be at an angle when the seat was too small, right? When it was too low?
Yeah.
Right. And you know, we forgot to mention, Mike, that the grips are the no waffle diamond for smaller hands. Forgot to mention that. That's a good one.
And I only have a quarter turn.
Ah, right. It's a quarter turn throttle because you don't need a whole lot of turn. Because what happens when you got too much turn?
When I have too much turn, go to here, and it's like, my elbow already goes down, so it'll go down like that.
Right. Right. Maybe you should wear your protective gear when you're sitting on the bike so you don't hurt yourself. Gotcha. All right. Anything else you want to tell us about the bike? Is it hard to start?
No.
No. You're not strong enough to pick it up yet, huh?
You can win championships on it, but you just can't get it off the stand.
Yeah. You'll be stuck in the pits the whole time. Oh, you know, it does take an excessively long time to warm up, doesn't it? It takes like 10 minutes.
It takes some time.
Yeah. And we are missing the front guide, or does it not come with the guide? Did we break the guide off? For
Off the fork?
Yeah.
Yeah, we broke
We
that.
broke that, yeah. Broke that. Gotcha. All right. Very good.